Hello, welcome to The Mill. I am so honored to have a very special guest with us today, DJ Dolan. DJ, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Hey, Rachel, I'm fired up to connect and be here. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, a little bit about DJ. Buckle up, this is impressive. He is a former decorated state and federal violent fugitive detective and special operations team member who has transitioned into a nonprofit leader, education entrepreneur, mindfulness and mental performance coach, speaker, and consultant. I got through that in one breath. I just want everyone to know how impressive that is. An unwavering mission has fueled DJ's journey to spread love by empowering servant leaders and purpose-driven teams with the skills to reach their holistic potential. He believes that to create lasting change, we must grow more folks to learn how to lead themselves while inspiring them to serve a meaningful cause. DJ has a unique blend of passion, research, and hands-on experience that spans positive psychology, mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral science, appreciative injury, leadership development, and learning and organizational development. He is proud to use this knowledge and experience to serve and lead numerous purpose-driven teams of committed teammates who share his dedication to positively impacting the world. DJ is most proud to serve and lead Team Dolan with his beautiful wife and teammate Jen and their three little teammates, Savannah, Jack, and Charlie. DJ, thank you so much. What an impressive and difficult to read bio. My gosh, you've done a lot. Thank you for making my job hard today.
Rachel, thank you for showing me that I need to button that up and
No,
get that down to
no, I love it. My gosh, it's just, I feel like I've written so many bios for myself over the years, and the more things that you do, the more experience you have, the harder it gets to write, because you're like, how do I pack the hardest punch in 6 words?
That's right.
So I think it's great. So I want to start to talk about your journey because it is unconventional. It's very unique. It's amazing. Walk me through it from detective to entrepreneur to coach. How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. Yeah, so unconventional is certainly something I've heard before, and it fails. So yeah, I've always been kind of heart driven, value driven. I grew up kind of raised by a village. Grandmother, Nana, Papa raised me, sisters, aunts, uncles. Family kind of took me in as their own when they were 14. As a young man, I didn't really have a steady male figure in my life. So I think TV raised me and told me what it means to be a man, right? So watching, military movies or videos or the action heroes, athletes or whatnot. So I think early on in life, I was kind of, how do I prove myself as to be a man or to be worthy or whatever it is, and so let me compete at sports. And I knew I wanted to go to college way back then, but I never saw anyone in my family go besides my sister. But my sister to me was really smart, and I wasn't, right? So that's why she could go. So for me, it was like, okay, maybe I'll join the military, and then I'll go, and do it that way. And I ended up earning a scholarship for football, which gave me the opportunity to go to school, and so I went and I had a great time competing as an athlete, and I ended up getting a job as an intern with the state police in the state where I was going to school, and ended up loving that job. The idea of serving others, of being there and taking strain from people and that are in a tough spot, and it was something that resonated with me. And so I really enjoyed the ride-alongs. I enjoyed being there for people at a time that they were going through a really tough time, and being able to help. And so that felt right to me as an intern. At the same time, that family I mentioned that took me in owned a funeral home, and so unconventionally, even on top of that, I was grew up working funerals and doing removals and and whatnot. And I think what taught me, what kind of I learned from that part of the journey was how to serve people that are with love and kindness at one of the worst days of their life, right? And doing that with learning how to communicate and help people and be kind and execute soft skills and all these types of things. And so I think that kind of helped me for the next phase into law enforcement. And so I knew once I was interning that's what I wanted to go into. Um, at the end of my college career, I had a ride along it was really a tragic event, and we lost a couple of small children doing CPR and whatnot. It didn't work out. A very really horrific scene type thing. And I remember back then, the commander saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And I remember thinking, like, this is what I want to be a warrior. I want to go into this job. I have to be okay. And so, yep, I'm fine. But I wasn't, right. I was waking up at night. I was seeing the images of the children and calling my nieces and nephews and my sisters to check on my nieces and nephews. And so after school, I went and got a contract, actually, boxing for a heavyweight boxing team out in Los Angeles, California. So Reed actually moved out with me at one point. I mean, we were roommates out there. But so I went out to do that, and I was working with a performance psychologist named Dr. Mike Gervais. He came in to work with our boxing team. He now works with the Seahawks and a couple and Olympians, but he brought mindfulness into the scene way back then, and it was to help us become better fighters, to help us train our mind to enhance our performance. Little did I know back then how much I kind of needed that at the time. So not only did it help me, I feel like, perform, but it helped me really start to figure out some of the stuff that was going on within me from what I was kind of went through in the past. And so anyways, fast forwarding, I joined the military after my boxing career, and I went through special operations training, and I ended up getting high. I joined through the National Guard, so it's a 20th Special Forces group in the Guard is what I was doing. So it was about 2 years of training, and at the end of it, I ended up getting hired by the state police, which was always my dream job. So kind of transitioned and focused on that, and got back into the state police, and had a career just about 11 years with the state police. Worked as my two dream jobs at the time were, to be a violent fugitives detective and work on the special operations team. And so I did both of those, and loved it. And it got to the point at the end of that career where a couple major things happened outside of the world pandemic and the things that everyone else dealt with. But for me, kind of personal stories. My sister ended up getting sick. And she was like she's a matriarch of the family. She's worked her butt off, like I said, first person to go to college. She became a partner of a law firm. Just an amazing human being, leader of our family. And so at that point, with where I was in our journey, we had two small kids, a baby and a newborn and a young toddler, and I was working the two call-out teams. The violent fugitive work is 24/7. The special operations is 24/7. So you always have a pager. And so I kind of took a step back from that to be able to be there for the rest of my extended family. And so in that time, I realized, I thought I was being a present father. I was doing the best I could at the time. But I realized how much strain that actually was, put on the family for me, saying, "Hey, honey, I'm going to do a murder warrant," or "Hey, honey, I'm going to look for this BRB. I get this guy's killing people, and I got to go get him and find him and whatever else." But
Netflix
anyways,
documentary stuff there.
Yeah, this guy's in Mexico. I got to go get him. So anyway, that kind of made me take a step back for a moment and widen my awareness a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Around the same time, one of my supervisors from from work ended up taking his life, which is like a major kind of event and something that really took us by surprise. This guy was a servant leader. He cared about his guys. And gals. He was there for them, there for us no matter what. He would lose his job to protect his people if they were doing the right thing. Type guy, like really an awesome leader. And 2 weeks up until that point, 2 weeks before that event, we were at an event together, and I love conversation. I love like getting to like soul to soul. I don't want to talk about the weather or sports if we don't give a shit about it, right? I want to talk about like what's real. And so I asked him, hey, I have 2 young kids, and I know you have 2 daughters, and they're both nurses. They're in their 20s, and you know, what's some advice you have for me? And his eyes watered up. Never saw that ever happen before. And he's like, spend time with your daughter. Don't miss anything. Coach them. He's like, all these big cases, these things that we think are important, they're important, but not nearly as important as, you know, being present and spending time, you know, with your family. You'll never get it back. And my only regret is not having more, you know. And so it was really interesting. So 2 weeks later, the event happened, and it made me think. Like, I was young and immature at the time when it came to suicide. From people I've experienced in the military, you know, friends in the military, whatnot, and I think up until that point, my kind of perception of it was, it's selfish if you have a family. How could you do it? And at that moment, I was like, there's something going on here. Like, what's happening? You know, because this guy loved his family, right? And it was a great leader, a great person, in shape, all these things. Like, so it just didn't make sense to me. And so that was another big event that made me kind of like just zoom out, like, what is going on here? So then I think back, and I'm like, I've been through all these hundreds of critical incidents, people trying to shoot me and hit me with cars and stab me and all these crazy things. I've seen, you know, the most horrific scenes of human suffering you can see and deal with and investigate. And I'm like, why have I been able to could do well at work, maintain relationships, like be present at home? My wife and I own and operate a business. Like, how am I doing all these things? And after going through all this, and I'm like, I know I'm not special, right? So there's something. So it made me think back to that event that I went through before, and then the training I received as a boxer. And I think back, and I'm like, that was it. I learned how to kind of consciously operate my own system. I learned how to process a painful thought and emotion. I learned how to, you know, build these habits that, you know, can help me enhance my performance, but also, most importantly, my well-being and resilience and relationships. And so that's when, for me, at that point, I'm like, you know what, I want to learn. I know how to do it because for the last you know 16 years up until that point, I was meditating without telling anybody about it, because I was like embarrassed, right? Like, I'm like waking up in the morning and, like, you know, hiding and meditating, right? Like, yeah, like, don't look at me. And journaling and all the you know, all the pieces from, you know, positive performance psychology that are proven to benefit you in so many ways. But I thought it was interesting, right? Because I'm not going to tell my teammates, like, I'm supposed to be this warrior. How could I can't tell you I'm meditating. Little do I know that all the greatest warriors in the history of the world, the Spartans, the you know, the samurai, everyone, they all meditated for hours a day. So so it's interesting. But long story short, long story long, actually, Rachel, as you can tell.
You got nothing but time, DJ.
So yeah, at that point, and then with the pandemic and the way everything was being handled, you know, talk about being value driven. It got to the point where, you know, we had to make some decisions for our family that were in the best interest of Team Dolan, and so there was, I ended up moving on from government service altogether, and you know, we focused on building our growing family, on building our preschool business, and it was an amazing decision at the time, and I decided to, you know, go on this journey to really understand human behavior at a different level. I knew what I was doing for me worked. I want to know how to learn, you know, how to help facilitate others to learn some of these techniques, because, man, I think life is so precious, and we have these skills and these tools that are there for the taking if we learn how to use them to optimize our life and to be value driven and to create a life that we deserve. And so when I think back on you know, what brought me here to today, I think it's following that inner compass. I think being willing to do what everyone thinks is the wrong thing, or like, not, you know, like we talked about before, like, you have this great job, you have these great things, you have all this, like, going on, but I think it's okay. I think it's important, you know, to follow your heart, regardless of the consequences, to let your values drive you, regardless of what everyone else is saying or thinking, including your family, extended family. And I think if you learn to do that, trust that inner voice, you will not always end up where you thought you might be, and that's okay, right? And I think so I just went on a tangent, but here we are, and I'm sure more will come up.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm sure some of that isn't easy to talk about. I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that with us. And, you know, on a personal note, 11 years ago, my dad died from cancer, Christmas morning. And up until that point, he was diagnosed 13 months before he passed, and they only gave him 3, and he fought like hell, and made it a little longer. But I remember very distinctly, I was in college. I was a captain of my lacrosse team, and I couldn't let stuff go. Like a teammate would make one small mistake, and it clung to me like poison. And then something else would happen, and I could feel myself getting heavy because I was not able to let stuff go, because didn't realize at the time I was deeply angry at what was happening, and I had no control over it with my family. And then he passed away, and then it only got worse, and I couldn't figure it out. I just could not. And it was my senior year of college, so I graduated, and then I started going to therapy because I didn't really know what to do. But I remember back at that time of when I decided to go to therapy, I was embarrassed to tell people, because I was like, well, they're all going to know something's wrong with me. Something was wrong with me, and there was nothing wrong with admitting that. But I remember that fear, kind of like how you're sharing. You didn't want to tell people you're meditating and journaling, when in fact, it is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And if people in your life don't respect, appreciate, and support that, then maybe you need to reevaluate why they're in your life. And so that was kind of my first big push, was through that adversity of fear, unknown, fear being judged, unsure of this, I'm meeting a stranger to tell them all of my deepest sadnesses and anxieties. And when I came out of it, and still continue to go, but it was a really intensive few months because I had a lot to kind of unearth. It all came to truth that I was just not aware of myself. I was suppressing everything that I was feeling, and then I was just letting everything else stack on top of me, and it was crushing me like bricks on my chest. And one of the things that I continue to do now, and it's hard, right? Oh my gosh, I struggle with this all the time. I'm getting married, and it is so much stress, and it's hard to sometimes separate, but I encourage everyone who's watching to take this as a lesson from both DJ and myself. Very different backgrounds, right? I maybe got yelled at once at a Hannaford for taking the last rotisserie chicken. It's very different from what DJ is experiencing here, but the sentiment is very much the same. Check in with yourself in those moments of something doesn't feel right. Kind of rise above and think about it of, is this reality, or am I assuming that this is what's going to happen? Is this actually how I'm feeling? Why am I feeling this way? How can I work through these feelings? How can I take a couple deep breaths and then maybe come back and reevaluate the situation and see if I feel any differently? And it's so applicable in your personal life, in your personal relationships, and at work. And I think especially leaders who are able to do that separation of let me just pause, rise above, look down at the situation, take a deep breath. When you act out of logic with a value-based mission, and non-emotionally, it is 9 times out of 10 going to be a better response than just knee-jerk, oh, that hurt, I'm going to fire right back at you. You're going to lose people. You're going to lose clients. You're going to feel heavy. You're not going to be your best self.
Rachel, that is beautiful. I just want to acknowledge you. I can see the emotion coming up in you as you talk about the story, and I know that takes a lot of courage too. So thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that is amazing advice. And it's, I think we'll get into a little bit today, but the looking at, through research, from both being on the violent criminal side, but also now studying human behavior on the human flourishing side. If you think about it, in any moment, we're either moving toward our value, towards something that's important to us, or we're moving away from, under the control of something that's inside of us that we don't like, we don't want, like a painful thought or emotion. And it's almost like if you think of like a bunny rabbit, it's going to move toward a carrot because that's for survival, right? And when it's doing that, it's in the flow of life. It's enjoying itself. It's like, I'm going to go eat, right? Because I need to grow and reproduce and continue my species, right? Or it's running away from a dog that's barking. And when it's running away from a dog that's barking, it's tense, it's tight, it's in fight or flight. It's nervous systems through the roof. The thing about humans is different than animals. Is animals, they'll be in fight or flight. They'll get away from the dog. Then they realize they're safe. They shake it out. They release all that emotion. They release all the energy, and then they're now back in the flow of life. They're with nature, and they're going to move toward survival or away from threat, right? And humans are interesting, right? Because we have this rational brain that we can remember these things, and we remember these values and these rules, and we have all this self-talk and inner talk from the past. We carry so much with us that, to your point, a lot of the times we're making decisions to move away from the feeling of angst, to the anger, reactivity, emotion, or whatnot. Even if on camera it looks like we're doing something valuable, right? Like even on camera. And I noticed that for exercise, for example, when I was in my 20s, I was working out to look good, right? I wanted to look good with the shirt off, right, in my 20s. That's what I was moving away from, the fear of not being good enough. So on camera, I'm doing this thing, I'm working out, I'm all the thing. But underneath, what's driving my behavior is a fear of being, maybe I was called fat as a kid, or skinny, or scrawny, or whatever. I'm moving away from the fear of not being good enough. So on camera, it looks great. But what's going on under the hood is I am that bunny running away from a dog.
Yeah.
Versus now, when I work out, I'm moving toward vitality. I want to be a young, healthy father. I want to be a grandfather that can play with my kids. Like, I want to be able to perform. I want to be able to have a lot of energy here, having great conversations with you. Like, so now I'm value driven, and we'll talk about the work a little bit, but when you become self-aware, like you just mentioned, you can start realizing you have that sensory clarity. Like, is this happening right now? Is this something from the past? It's real because my body can feel it.
Right.
But like it puts you in the driver's seat to kind of make that decision, and then make decisions now that can help you move toward what matters most to you, rather than away from, under the control of some sort of pain that you don't understand at the moment.
Yeah. There's a book that I read a few years ago. The author's name is Alexandra Elle, and the book's called After the Rain. And it's all about healing and relationships, and just felt like a book I really wanted to read. And there's one sentiment that she talks about, that happiness and sadness are choices. And it blew my effing mind. You can choose to feel or to not to feel those emotions. Whereas we as people feel like those things are happening to us, at us. And if you really think about it, I can choose to look at my coffee and be like, man, it's almost gone. Or I can be like, I can't wait to finish that to get another one, and then I'm really going to shake all day. But it just blew my mind of that. These emotions that we're like, oh gosh. And now I'm sad. You can still choose to find happiness even in sad moments, in the same way that you can choose to feel bummed out about something that's actually really great. So for any leaders, it is definitely more of an emotional book, and there's certainly some relationship things in there, but I strongly suggest reading it. It's on Amazon. But DJ, I want to ask about the One Tribe mentorship that you have.
Yes.
I, as a former washed up athlete myself, and student and entrepreneur, I just think this is really amazing, and I'd love for you to share about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for asking. And you never washed up. You're always once an athlete, always an athlete, right? So yeah, One Tribe. My whole experience in law enforcement, what I thought was my dream job was to find and locate the most violent people. And what I learned throughout the journey, and I think mindfulness and self-awareness helped me with this, is something I call tactical empathy, where I'd have a case of someone that did something terrible, and I would be like, okay, I can get emotional about this because I'm reading this report of what allegedly happened, or like, let me try to understand, right? And not agree, but understand. So I want to know what this person, where they're from, what environment they're from, who raised them, how they were raised, how they were spoken to, what they went through in the past, what they did in the past. I was obsessed with studying behavior, because I believe that in that moment I could find a pattern that can help me locate them in the future. And what I thought was my dream job was at the moment, but I just became sad after a while, Rachel, because what I noticed was, after learning all of this, after looking at all the evidence and whatnot, I'm like, this person did something horrible, but I'm not surprised that they did what they did. Doesn't mean they need to be caught, they need to be removed, they need to take ownership, like all that. However, it was over and over again. It's, younger, young kids. It's products of environment. It's all these different things. They have victim mindsets and they're not taking ownership, but they also were never given the skills or the opportunity or not likely to do it, right? So not making excuses, but tactical empathy turned to real empathy. And I'm like, okay. Now, what I was blessed with is for the last 11 years, I've been a leadership development, team building instructor with a company called The Program. And so I've had the privilege of working with some of the most elite athletes in college and professional sports and corporations, leaders in business. And so I got to see, just like myself, coming from adversity, coming from the background, I was on welfare as a kid, like and having adversity and then overcoming it. I had mentors and people that guided me, and I had a lot of help, but I was lucky. A lot of these players that I work with and I have the opportunity to coach and mentor and train them too. Some of them came through from terrible backgrounds and terrible adversities they have had to overcome. But all of them had at least one person that said, "I believe in you," right? Whether it was the coach, a janitor, a parent, a cousin, some random person that walked up and said, "I believe in you." Like someone gave them that belief in themselves, and which allowed them to believe in themselves, right? Because as humans, we have these needs, these basic needs to be seen and heard. If we're seen and heard, we feel like we matter. And if we feel like our life matters, then we believe we're worthy of love, success, growth, all these things. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed was, especially like the gang kids and stuff like that, they don't feel seen and heard by authority their whole lives or the environment. So they use violence to be seen and heard. They don't think their life matters. So as a byproduct of it, no one else's life matters either, right? So they'll do things that can hurt other people. And then they think they're worthy of success, but it's illegitimate success, right? It's success on the street that is going to end in death or incarceration or whatever else, right? And so looking at all that, I like to be big picture and solve, work towards contributing, solving like systematic solutions as opposed to reacting to problems, symptoms that are a part of that are not touching the root cause, right? So. Looking at what I was doing, I'm like, I feel like I'm just responding to like problems that are already happening over and over and over again. And I'm looking at the environments and I'm like, I'm not surprised. It's just going to keep happening. It's like, it's great for job security, right? But it's horrible for our humanity, right? So what One Tribe was kind of born out of was, the idea is one tribe. If you zoom out to space and you're looking at Earth, it's an island in the middle of an infinite dark ocean, and there's one tribe on that island. Now, I don't know if we'll ever all realize that, but who I think does realize it, and I think who's responsible for creating a better world and making lasting change are servant leaders. And servant leaders it doesn't matter if you serve in the military or law enforcement or business, which I think is most important, right? A servant leader is somebody who serves a cause, a meaningful cause bigger than themselves, something that's helping others, helping the world. And they make every decision with their tribe's best interest at heart, with the team's best interest at heart. They really genuinely care about each individual. They want them to grow, even if that means they leave them to go do something else. Especially then, we want to serve those who we have the honor of serving, to become their best version of themselves and really make them believe in themselves and help them find their strengths. And that's how we think we create lasting change. So for One Tribe, for me, we're still building it and developing it, but the idea was, hey, let's connect, some of these student athletes with a mentor, someone that's a servant leader or wants to be a servant leader, and let's guide them through relationships built on, I'm working on making me the best version of me, you're working on making you the best version of you, and then, hey, we're just like teammates with each other. We're going to check in on each other, hold each other accountable, and push each other a little bit. Unlike I've done a bunch of mentorships in the past where it's like, hey, DJ, here's Joey, like, figure it out. And then, you go to, it's great. And it's so important, right? But One Tribe, the mission is more of, I want to connect young leaders who want to lead, right? Like young leaders who want to be the best version of themselves. One Tribe is not to try to instill motivation. It's those who are young, those who are motivated, who want to serve something bigger than themselves. It's putting gasoline on that fire as opposed to trying to create the fire, if that makes sense. So so that's the kind of the big picture idea, because the way I see it is, I don't care what neighborhood you're from or what you're going through. If you have influence when you're 14, 15, 16, like Rachel, you did when you were younger, I'm sure, in your own ways, leading and whatnot, you're going to have influence when you're 26. You can have influence when you're 36, 46, 56. So the way I see it is, how we create lasting change is through purposeful relationships, by taking ownership of the quality of our lives, by supporting others to do the same, and by really owning the quality of our lives, our neighborhoods, the world, and not waiting for some government or someone else to come in a white horse and save us, because it's not going to happen. So I think that personal responsibility piece is huge. And the way I see it, student athletes are already serving something bigger than themselves, a team. They're learning how to be great teammates, how to be unselfish, how to be resilient, how to train their mind, their body, their skills, come together to compete. They're learning how to fail on the playing tough games or whatnot. And so there's so much there that is just ripe for you to be just a great teammate in business or in the world in some way, great leader in the world in some way. And so servant leadership to me is essentially learning how to lead yourself first, and then sharing that relationship with others, right? By helping develop and help everyone else on their journey to become the best version of them, all while we work together to serve something that's bigger than us.
Oh my God, I can't agree with that more. I was a team sport player from day one. I was first chair French horn in the band until I graduated through high school. I've always been a part of a team. I have two siblings, an older and a younger, so I'm, the evil little middle child. And I hold that title very proudly for everyone watching. But what's so interesting, I don't have an MBA. I didn't go to business school. I have a bachelor's degree. And then I just started working, and then I had an idea and started a business. Everything I've learned is self-taught or impressed on me by some sort of servant leader, whether that be my parents, who had a greater good for our whole family, and they wanted us to be shaped in a specific way to impact the world. My high school lacrosse coach, my college lacrosse coaches, some former bosses, supervisors, and colleagues even helped shape me. But I look back on it and I think, I just taught the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester how to make homemade pasta, and we made it and then we ate it together. And I remember sitting there and talking to these kids about leadership and, what do you want to be when you grow up, or what's interesting to you, or do you like to cook? And giving, all of a sudden, these kids who went from very shy and kind of like, I don't want to get my hands dirty, were like throwing flour on each other, and they're like, no, like do it this way and follow me. And just to watch that transition happen in a matter of hours, by giving them an opportunity to have a platform to lead, to engage, to motivate each other, to challenge each other, to play with each other, is really beautiful. And it dawned on me that at no point in my childhood or college was there any sort of formal education or training on how to be a leader at all. Maybe it existed and I wasn't aware of it, but I don't ever recall having an opportunity to educate myself on what is it to be a good leader. And outside of just business in general, leading people. And so I think what you're doing is going to have a major impact on the future, because you're empowering younger generations. Like, I was a kid that would have eaten that alive. I would have been all over that, right? Highly motivated, team player, hungry, love to work, love to succeed, love to fail and learn. That's just how I'm wired. Got to get it done, got to do it now, and going to do it again. So I think to give that opportunity to kids is so crazy important. And I hope you know that. It sounds like you do, but as one of those kids that would have really loved what you're doing, I applaud it and think it's amazing.
Rachel, thank you so much. And I love the story from the pasta making. It reminds me of my Italian side. Ballatori, I'm guessing, very Italian thing to teach.
Deeply.
I love it.
First generation.
I love it. But get everyone together and eating that's beautiful. No, I appreciate that, Rachel. And that's that's definitely gives me the meaning behind it all. Is, hey, how can we help each other, because I think that's where lasting change comes, is how we all learn to lead ourselves, and we do it together. And you mentioned not having an MBA, like 100%, right? You've given yourself permission, you believe in yourself, you're behaving like someone that wants to succeed, and that's why you've become someone who succeeds. Believe, behave, become. And I think there's so much to learn from that, because we go into so many, and owning 2 preschools, we serve a couple hundred kids a year, and you see these kids before they enter like school, like they're just full of wonder, right? Like they're question marks. And I heard a quote once. It's like, sometimes we start our education journey as a question mark, and then we end as a period. And it was like, oh my goodness, like, right? Like, because we feel like we need this like external, we learn to, like, it's like blind obedience to authority in the room. You need to, you're not learning your own strengths. You're not learning to listen to that inner voice, that inner wisdom that's so dang important to learn to listen to. And you're trying to look for that, like, external validation, or I need this piece of paper to give me permission to go help people. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't. But what's like what you mentioned is the relationships. Like, you learn from experience, learn from others that can share their gifts with you, and there's so much power in relationships, and especially when they're intentional and purpose driven, and it's a positive sum game. It's I think selfishly, whenever I feel like I'm helping somebody, it feels really good, right? Like, if it so it's what you're mentioning is right on the money.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What advice would you give to leaders, or a leader who has a teammate or team member that does not take accountability for their actions?
That's good. So tell me more about that. So somebody like
say they're making a lot of mistakes. They're not showing up. They're late. They have a general negative attitude. Their mistakes are being discussed. The team is like, hey, this is how it makes me feel when you do this. And then there's no change in behavior. What's your conversation to the leader, or the captain, or the person in charge of overseeing those people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a powerful one. It's an important one. So a team has values, and those values should be clear, and they should be communicated, and everyone should have buy-in on what they mean, and buy-in on the consequences of not meeting them. Servant leaders, right? The way I see it is, if you have a triangle, like traditional leadership, they're on the top of that triangle, and everyone is below serving you, right? Servant leadership is you flip that triangle, and you're at the bottom serving everybody. But really, what you do is you're the keeper of the values and the mission of the business or the organization. And you're there to make sure that the whole group is aligned with those values, moving toward that higher purpose, that mission, that vision. And I think Peter Drucker once said the task of leadership is to organize everyone's strengths to the point where our individual weaknesses are irrelevant, right? And so when you have somebody that a team member that understands the values, understands the consequences, and then is continuing to not meet them, sometimes that's like the never gonna be in type folks. And I think in order to be a member of a high performing team that is a great place to be, that also cares about everybody, you have to be a great teammate. And being a great teammate means you have to hold yourself to a standard and then help others do the same. And if you're not willing to take accountability, I think, communicating that, verbalizing that, counseling that, really trying to help them help themselves, if you will. But there's got to be a time you got to flip the script and realize that if I'm spending all this time, you only have so much time as a leader. If I'm spending all this time with one person, who am I not giving my mentorship or my energy to, or that deserves it, that wants it, that needs it? And I think if it's someone that's just not doing it, it has to be a tough conversation where you're saying, hey, like, this is who we are, and if you can't be that, then go somewhere else and be happy, I hope, but it's not going to be here. I think you have to have that tough conversation at some point, because the longer you keep around somebody that isn't living by the values, that isn't being a great teammate, the more damage that's actually doing to all those who are committing to being great teammates.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's really good advice, because we work with a lot of earlier stage businesses that are growing quickly. And so they might be hiring quickly. And so for the first time, all of a sudden, they're going from a team of 2 to 10. So it's really important, if anyone is watching and you find yourself in that situation, A, reach out to DJ and talk to him. But B, your vision, your mission, your values have to be clear to you. As the leader, you have to have internal alignment. And then you have to be able to really clearly and effectively communicate to those on your team and your clients. Your clients have to live up to your values. You know, at Mill & Co., our core pillars are kindness, empathy, and open communication. We're an advertising agency. People are like, why isn't it like innovative and strategic and smart? And I was like, because it is, we are those things. But that's not what I value. I value kindness, I value empathy, and I value open communication. And I will not tolerate clients or team members who do not share, or at the bare minimum, respect those values. So as you're growing your team, as your business is evolving, the internal communication and process and expectation setting has to keep up with that level of growth.
Absolutely. And just to echo that, and add a little bit more color to it, from somebody who used to look for the most violent people in the world, that competes in jiu-jitsu, competes in professional boxing, to done everything to try to be a tough guy, right? Let me tell you this. Soft skills are the most important skills in business, in life, in general.
In the back, DJ.
100%. Soft skills are the most important skills by far. And I think of success that I've had in training in Special Forces Assessment Selection. I ended up really proud of becoming an honor graduate of that training. It's 400 of us started. I think like 80 of us finished, and I was the honor graduate of it. And I think back yes, you need hard skills. You need to be able to lift your own and move and all that. You need it, right? That's like a price of admission. But what makes you exceptional as a leader and a teammate are the soft skills. Because I think of why was I chosen, and it wasn't because the physical fit and all that stuff. That was a requirement. It was because of listening, empathy, picking people up, putting others before myself. There was one kind of iteration where we had to move out as fast as we could. We haven't slept. We haven't eating. All these things. We're beaten down. And we had to carry our gear 60, 70, 80 pounds, whatever it was, and then move a long distance as fast as possible. I could move really fast at the time. We had people in the back that were just coming back from deployment that or whatnot that were breaking off. And what happened with that was if someone broke off for more than like 10 meters, they would get dropped from the course completely. So we came up with a system like, hey, let's communicate up. When someone's getting back, let's whistle or whatever, and then I'll tailor it back, and then we'll get everyone there. So the instructor's yelling at my face and, you better speed up. I know you're not going as fast as you can. Well, and I'm like, yes, sir. And I just kept going at the speed that was going to help my team, right? And we get to the end, and I got smoked for it. They made me do push-ups and all this stuff. But then they told me later on that that's what they were looking for. I made a decision that was based on my team's values in the face of the external circumstances that was screaming and yelling in my face, at the detriment of myself short term, because I had to do the push-ups and get yelled at and feel like I was maybe getting kicked out. But the point is those soft skills: looking left, looking right, picking each other up, having compassion, empathy, understanding, kindness, all these things. These aren't just buzzwords. These aren't just words on the wall. Soft skills are crucial if you want to sustain, maintain business, and actually make positive impact on the world. So
yeah, and that's temporary pain for long-term gain. Like you knew that this was going to hit you first, but that doesn't matter because you know that it's going to benefit others, which will in turn benefit you. And I think that's great, and it's so indicative of everything you're doing. And I just want to take our last few minutes here and tell me about Team Dolan. Tell me about your fam. What does that mean to you? And you raising 3 humans to be, citizens and out in the world and doing stuff and making an impact. What's your family dynamic like?
Oh, Rachel, thank you for asking. It's my favorite topic, if you can tell by my smile. So we got Savannah, Jack, and Charlie back there. All 3 of them. And so Team Dolan, my wife and I came up with this. I think after working with so many teams and whatnot, I being part of teams as an athlete, we're sitting there and we're like, we're a team. Like, we're creating a team. Like, what is a team? It's at the first it was just the 2 of us, right? We're co-captains of team 2 of us, and then we got dogs, right? And so they're part of our team, and and then we had this privilege of building a team, and I think so too many of us get caught up, and we watch like a professional sports team, a college sports team, which I love. I work with them. I love it. But we sit there and we're cheering on the team. We're doing fantasy football. We're cheering on these people that don't know us. And but meanwhile, we have a family here that needs us. They need our leadership, right? We have business. We have folks in our business that need our leadership. And so I think whenever you have a group of people, it's a team. So whether it's business or a sports team or family. So we just, from the start, we started calling ourselves Team Dolan, and it's corny, and people make fun of us, and it's
funny. I
it's
love
great.
it.
It's so. But also, I think the dynamic is important, right? I think
Yeah.
the relationship dynamic, because we're servant leaders, Jen and I, and we're teammates, right? So with our kids, so we're not, hey, we're the omnipresent, know all, like do what we say because we said it. People, like, we are teammates. We're there to make decisions in the best interest of the team that we think at that time with the intel we have, but to help guide them be leaders too, and be teammates too. So we hold each other accountable. They hold me accountable. We do. We have this fun thing with the kids now that we'll say for different things. We'll say you have to earn it. Let's earn everything and make it fun, right? And so they can choose mind, but they can earn it with their mind, with their body, or with their heart. And so with mind, it's teach us something new, or tell us, or ask us questions about something you're interested in, and we'll research and look it up together, right? So like let's get that going, like the kind of curiosity in mind and whatnot. And then body is, we got push-ups, we got flutter kicks, we got squats, and they usually pick those, which is funny. And or your heart is, let's do a self-love, give yourself a hug, say I love myself, and then hug your teammate, one of your teammates, or do something kind. Also for body is deep breaths. I'm teaching them deep breaths right off the bat, so they have their breathing under control already, which is I feel we feel proud of, So so Team Dolan is just that we see ourselves as a team. Our team mission is to spread love in the world, whatever that means to each individual as they grow up. That's what they means, and we'll support each other, be teammates for each other. And I've realized in this, the best out of everything I've done, the most lessons I've learned is by far by being a dad, and I think that's what hammers home, and husband, but really being a dad has been the biggest lessons learned. And for me, that's what just reiterates the power of soft skills to help, develop others. Because I could scream and yell and use the hard skills, right, and then put everyone in nervous system, fight or flight, and then the house is quiet, but to what detriment of the future for them and their development and growth. So the soft skills of listening and kindness and being present, and being open to talk about emotions and process emotions, and to kind of put a button on that with the kids, is I've realized that the best way for me to lead them is to show them what it looks like to lead yourself, and that means to feel. Sometimes if I do yell at witching hour at 5, I raise my voice, get down on the knee, take a deep breath, look at my son in the eye, say, Jack, Daddy, emotions got the best of me, and I was trying to tell you not to hit your brother or sister, whatever it is. So I'm sorry about that. So showing him what it looks like to own your mistakes, kind of in real time. And I think that translates over to business as well, right? Like if you try to show up and say, I'm the end all be all, I know everything. Like, first of all, you're full of shit. And second of all, no one learns anything, and then all they've learned is that they can't trust having an honest conversation with you. So,
right.
Really being vulnerable, having the courage to be vulnerable. I think that's the bridge to human connection, is authenticity to and through vulnerability.
I feel like you should write a book called Mind, Body, Heart. That's brilliant. Honestly, I have a client who they do, what is it? Roses, buds, and thorns. So every night they have dinner and they'll talk about, or is it buds and roses and thorns? Some combination of that. But every night as a family, they sit down, they have dinner, and they talk about what was the thorn today. Something that didn't feel right, or was a little uncomfortable, or I was working through it. And then what was a rose, what was like a big success, and maybe what's a bud, something I'm excited about and it's coming. And
I love that.
while that's a really great exercise, what it's doing is teaching their children from a very young age how to communicate through their feelings, both positive, negative, and anticipatory, which is not a skill that is taught at all.
No.
unless it's in very specific families like yours and my clients, where they really take ownership and accountability for giving their kids these skills. So I think that's beautiful. Honestly, you should write a book, a parenting book, make it like a short story, and that's really great. I love that you guys do that. I love that your kids are embracing that, and I can't wait to watch these little Dolans take over the world someday.
Oh, they'll be serving, helping make more leaders if we do it right.
Yeah.
And,
If they're looking for an internship, let me know. How old are they? 5 and
yeah, 5. Yep, 5. Yep, we're gonna be 4 and 1. So we'll get
Beautiful.
them going.
That's good.
Rachel,
Well,
could I add the one thing, the thorns and buds? Could I add one thing to that, because I think it might add value. So we do something similar I call it the daily debrief, and I actually do this with business leaders and with our own staff and with athletes and whatnot. Yeah. It's a way to journal, and it's 3 prompts. Okay, it's the first one is the 3 good things. So 3 things from the day that made you feel happy, or like you said, like the rose, and just thinking about it, visualizing it, writing about it. The second is going to be drop the weight. And that's what we're talking about with mental emotional weight, things for the day that were challenging or hard or weighing on us, right? And when we ask ourselves these questions, answers come up. And if there's no answers, that's great, no worries. But sometimes if we ask ourselves that question from a prompt, it's useful. So drop the weight is meaningful if you think visually, because if you go to the gym and work out, like, you're carrying weight, which is great. But the reason why you grow is because you put the weights down and then leave the gym and recover and rest, and then you go back. But most of us, we carry this mental emotional weight sometimes since childhood all the way to now, and it's a lot of weight, like, as Rachel and I both expressed in our own lives. So drop the weight is a great way every night to kind of just express it, drop it, put it out on paper, get it out. And then the last part is looking forward. So what's one thing in the near future, tomorrow or soon, that I'm looking forward to? Again, visualize it, think about it, something you have control over. And so you train your mind in a cool way. The 3 good things helps us override our natural negativity bias, because we're always looking for threats. So when we can start looking for things that we appreciate, our brain actually organizes itself to filter that out more. So we're going to see more of that day to day, the things that went under our awareness. Drop the weight's an opportunity to let's get it out of our mind and back and body and out on paper. And then looking forward, hey, what is, optimistic, what is something I can look forward to that I have control over, that can that can really pull me toward it. And the power of that is visualization, and really thinking about it in your mind, creating it. I think Aristotle said a vivid imagination compels the whole body to obey it. So doing that and training your mind in those 3 ways is incredible for any human at any age. So I just wanted to offer that.
I love that. It's so funny too when you say that, the more that you visualize something or think about something, the more it appears. I bought a Toyota RAV4 XLE Silver, beautiful little car. It is the only car I now see on the highway, right? It's 100%. Always been there. It's a very popular brand. It's a very popular car. But the second I buy it and suddenly it means something more to me, it's all I see on the highway. And so that power of visualization, being present and thinking something into fruition happens, manifesting good things and having that positive energy and attitude is going to drive positive results and outcomes.
Rachel, 100%. Say it louder. And like you said before, the happiness and sadness is a choice, and those beliefs that they both become true, right? And so you're 100% right. I love that the Toyota example. Because imagine what happens when you.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, imagine what happens when you start believing in yourself and looking for clues of why you're worthy of love, happiness, success. The world will show you those reasons, and it's a nice upward spiral.
Just imagine, right? And maybe don't imagine. If anyone is watching, let's make today a really good one. I'm going to go run through a brick wall because that's how amped up I am right now. I've also almost finished my coffee, so we've discussed that already. But DJ, thank you so much. This was such a great way to start my day. I love talking about this stuff. Please come back on anytime. It was really, really nice to have you.
Rachel, I had a blast. Thank you so much.
Everyone watching, thank you for tuning into The Mill. We'll see you next time.